Hi, this is MTGO Traders. My name is Terran. Let's play some Magic. And I have with me the fantastic Jerry Thompson with us, two-time Pro Tour winner and almost, well, I guess runner-up from the Pro Tour Ravens of Ixalan. So this video, I'm basically going to title like the top 5 reasons energy should be banned in the standard meta. And to me, a lot of people are kind of pointing to like Attune with Aether as the card that needs to be banned, and other people are pointing to just energy in general needing to be banned.
Let's call these videos Deck Delve. This way I can bring more content to you, more content to the channel, and not spend hours playing matches on each of these decks. Today's deck tech is Rakdos Burn, an aggressive deck that doesn't hinge on creatures, but spells that slowly but surely whittle your opponent's life total down to 0. The creatures in the deck list help in that regard, but they're not the primary win condition.
So I wanted to kind of start off with, how has Magic the Gathering impacted your life?
Well, it's impacted my life in a major way in that it's now my life. It's a funny thing to sometimes say to my wife, I need to go down to Friday Night Magic because it's work.
Good evening, and today, Terran Qualls from MTGO Traders has joined me to do 15 questions. Terran, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Ready to get this going, man.
Cool. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and start with a very easy question, and that's, how do people find you? And I know you have actually MTGO Traders channel, and then you have your own. And
Sure.
How would you describe content both, on MTGO Traders and on your personal channel?
Sure. So the main, like my primary thing I do day over day is MTGO Traders content. That's Magic the Gathering Online Traders, and it's Magic the Gathering style content, and that's on Magic the Gathering's YouTube channel. I do their Twitter and their Facebook page. I post like little 5-minute deck techs on their Facebook page, which is fun. Or I post a bunch of like really meme stuff, which is fun too. I get to try and find like dank memes within the Magic the Gathering community. That's cool. But yeah, just doing deck techs, doing drafts. Helping people like Chaz Andres with his MTGO Finance videos, helping Kenji with like editing his draft videos, all that fun stuff, and then getting random interviews on my channel as well. And then my other stuff, like the side stuff, like on my Twitter at Terran Qualls, which is my name, and then the YouTube stuff as well. It's like just me talking about video games, Battlefield 5 controversy, all that kind of stuff. Whatever I want to talk about really on that channel is up to me, but that's more like a ranting casual channel. The main primary driver for me is MTGO Traders. And
I'll go ahead and drop a link to all that information in the description below, so you guys can go ahead and follow, watch, share, and watch everything that you put out. First off, I like your streams. I may not always engage on your stream, but I'm generally a fly in the wall around there somewhere.
Sure.
Just watching content. So
yeah.
So
the streams are one of the hardest things for me to do because of the scheduling behind streams.
Yeah.
Like it's like making content is like, it feels like making content or YouTube content is easy compared to doing actual streams because of how like just time consuming and how consistent you want them to be and how long you want them to be, and it's just a whole thing.
Yeah. And then it's like you never know how long matches are going to go. So like you could say, "Oh, I'm going to stream for 45 minutes." But then you play against a control deck, and you could probably play one match in 20 minutes. So,
yeah, it really depends. Especially now with I guess a lot of people wanting more modern content for Magic Online versus Arena, which is more standard. I can play like 5 matches in standard on Arena in like maybe half an hour. Like that's how fast those matches go. Most of the time because you could get it down to where you just do one game instead of 2 out of 3 or whatever. Right. But then like in modern, it's like it can just go on forever depending on what kind of matchup you're going against.
Exactly. So speaking of creating content, like you've been creating content for MTGO Traders for I don't know, a little bit over a year now, right? So
I think it's about to hit 2 years in March.
Oh, wow.
So a little like a year and a half.
Oh wow.
So almost a year and a half now.
Nice. So how did you get started creating YouTube content?
Man, I kind of like backed into it by accident. The content I make is so originally I was kind of hired on to do like graphic designs, web designs, social media marketing, that kind of thing. And then like we were just working on a bunch of different projects, and I was like, you know what, I could just like get the YouTube channel started and get that going. And they're like, okay, that's cool. And then they were like, oh, well, also I can start kind of posting on Twitter and posting in Reddit and posting on Facebook and like making videos on that as well and getting content going on there. And they're like, oh, that's fine. And then eventually just kind of became this whole thing where it's like I'm just a YouTuber now, which is fun and really rewarding. and exciting, but it's like not exactly what I do for a real living. So it's like, it's like, most of my clients are like, I make logos and do social media marketing, but it's like, I mean, here it's like I make YouTube videos, and that's fine too.
Nice. So I have a very interesting question for you
Sure.
in regards to MTGO. And there's a lot of this conversation about this in social media, on Twitter, all different places. People are speculating that MTG Arena is going to basically be the MTGO replacement. What's your take on that? Like, how do you first off, like, what do you think about that? And do you think that's the case?
One, just as a fast answer or easy answer, I'm going to say no. I think they're going to exist in tandem. And two, the longer answer is WotC, their shareholders, and everyone that's ever talked to them like one-on-one and has been quoted by them have always said that Arena is going to be just standard moving forward. Now, there has been talk of like making a new format starting from Shadows over Innistrad, and I think that's probably going to happen, like a new postmodern style format, which I'm excited for because that means Tron is no longer in a format that's bigger than standard, which is cool. But also stuff like I think that Saffron Olive just tweeted today that said, it says our goal that changes the focus on Magic Online does best. Biggest strength is what we have is Magic is faithful using back catalog of Magic. So Magic Online is going to be focusing on like vintage, on modern, on pauper. There's definitely still going to have standard there. There's definitely still going to have drafts there. A lot of the people that argue, Magic Online is staying around because like more competitive people stay on Magic Online, and I can definitely kind of see that argument. I don't think that's the full argument for like people that actually come to Magic Online. I feel like a lot of people go there because building modern decks, building Legacy, and building Commander decks are like so much cheaper than building in paper that it's like kind of mind-boggling. Like you can build a deck that's like, I don't know, $3,000 in Legacy, but on Magic Online it's like maybe 200 tickets. It's like there's a huge disconnect in price. Whereas for standard on online versus like real paper Magic, there's like it's more close to like where it should be. Where it's like a deck in paper is like 250, and then a deck on online is like 200 or something like that, or 215. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me, online's going to stay, Arena's going to stay. Arena's definitely kind of going full forward with all the standard stuff, and I think it's definitely going to be there for that. I don't really see them adding modern or vintage or pauper. It just takes so much dev time to add all of those kits, all of those different sets from the past. And I just don't see them pouring that much unless Arena turns into this monumental thing. But I don't think that's, again, still going to happen for another 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I think often people don't really think about the fact that there's over 14,000 other cards that they have to load into Arena. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of cards. It's a lot of cards and interactions.
Yeah, it's like you think about the 14,000 cards, and you're like, okay, well, those cards have to interact with other cards within other formats, like millions of different ways. Yeah. And so, like, even though they are on the Unity engine, which is good for that kind of thing, for interacting like card to card, that's really fine as far as like implementing rules on like a card per card basis. That's cool. It's just the dev time itself to add that many cards into a format would take forever. I mean, they barely like get out the sets as they come out, like right now on Arena.
Right.
So it's very difficult to me for me to think that they would have the ability to do that. Now I think it would get easier going forward, like if they started from Shadows over Innistrad going forward, because I think Shadows has already been programmed into Arena. It's just not available right now. So if they did make a new format, I think that would be fine. But it's just like kind of Magic Online gets away with like whenever there's a modern set or a format and there's a new standard set coming out. A lot of the cards from the standard set might have cards that have already been programmed into Magic Online, like Negate or Essence Scatter or Cancel, whatever those cards are. Just named a bunch of control cards because I'm a control player at heart. But those kind of cut corners a little bit, where like maybe 30% of the new set is already cards that are in the actual program, which is fine. Just needs a new piece of art on top of that, and that could be something going forward for Magic Online. But again, I just don't think it's going to be feasible for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I would agree. So moving on from that, I want to talk a little bit about MTGO Finance, because obviously,
sure.
MTGO Traders, you guys do finance content as well as really look at the market in many different ways. And some of the things that I've been thinking about and I've seen on social media as well is people talk about everybody's selling their collections. I'm getting out of MTGO as far as owning cards. I'm just going to renting and
sure.
Do you see? Well, first, have you seen a shift in how like patterns in MTGO as far as cards going up or down? Have they affected this from your perspective? And do you like see the rental market being the core business model of any digital card service?
I think the rental market is kind of it's a very like complex issue for that, for sure, because there's so many different ways you can do the rental market. And to me, with the digital products, sorry, I'm trying to think about it while we're talking. I like the idea of renting product for sure, and that's something that we've kind of even looked into ourselves. But for the one-to-one experience, I think just buying and selling one-to-one is much easier, especially whenever you have things where it's like people are renting and then you start charging them late fees or something like that for particular cards or whatever. I feel like that's a little kind of predatory on some players, and they don't want to really do that. I think that especially with like Arena, where you just can't trade with anybody, sure, that kind of like just destroys that entire like thought process for kind of new software applications moving forward. But for me, it's like, as far as like spikes or kind of falls within like MTGO Traders or MTGO in general, there's definitely been a little bit like of a tick down, but that's only because of Arena just kind of being so popular right now, and kind of like a lot of people kind of moving over to Arena for Standard. And that totally makes sense too, because Arena is a ton of fun to play. Like, it's like super fast and super like frantic. But at the same time, it's like whenever you go over there, it's like you have to build everything over from scratch. Some players have been on Magic Online for a decade because it's been around that long, you know. And also it only supports Standard. So building your deck from scratch all over again, randomly with wild cards. Because I tried to build some decks for a stream a few weeks ago, and was just like, I'm just like pouring money into this system to try and get wild cards for a deck that I can't build because of all the dual lands and shock lands. I'm just like,
right.
Like, of course you do that at the beginning, you know, with Magic Online, but it's like whenever you buy a Steam Vince, you buy a Steam Vince, you know. So it's kind of not the same as far as like the different models one-to-one. But it's definitely something, as far as a renting perspective, is super interesting, and I think it's something that we might look into in the future for MTGO Traders, but I'm not really sure on that. I think for right now, just the one-to-one experience of buying and selling is where it's at.
Do you see any trends with the sellouts? Like, people like, and I know it's a small portion of the community that I've seen that
Sure,
has sold out their collections. Like, it has that really affected the market at all? Have you seen, I should say?
Well, I mean, it's always going to be something that happen. I feel like sellouts happen like every other, I want to say like between 6 to 12 months. We've seen like kind of people being like, I've given up, and they leave, and then like 6 to 12 months later, they're like slowly coming back in, but they're not, you know, doing what they were doing within the same formats. So I think selling out is something that a lot of people like doing, especially because MTGO Traders can give you like product towards paper Magic too, which is super cool. Or if you want to do paper to MTGO or whatever, we do that as well. But selling out, I don't know. It's just sometimes it's like a big person wants to sell out. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's super like interesting that they're doing that and they're getting out of Magic Online. And but they're not really like going anywhere right now. They'll go to Arena for a little bit, you know, for a while. But for those older formats, they have to come back to online because that's kind of where those formats are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as like just seeing like a huge uptick in it, we've seen a little bit as far as a spike between people just moving to Arena for just Standard, like if they're just doing Standard. But besides that, I mean, we haven't really seen much.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and let's move over to the Magic questions specifically. These are the ones that I like the most because
sure,
they're the most personal, I think, to the person I'm speaking to. And this, you know, the first one that I like asking is, you know, when did you play Magic for the first time? Like, what hooked you in? And kind of like, you know, what's your origin story in a way?
Sure. I mean, the first set I ever like got into, as far as a Magic set that I like remembered the name of, because I probably played Magic when I was younger, but I didn't realize it was Magic because I really got into like card games with like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and that kind of stuff. And then when I got to high school, it was like, play this demon card game with me because it had, you know, a lot more demonic stuff on top of it. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I think the first set I got into was either Champions of Kamigawa or one of the Kamigawa blocks, like sets within that block. One of the reasons is because I was a big anime nerd when I was growing up. And so I was like, samurais and stuff. That's cool. Because I was really big into like Yu-Gi-Oh! I was like, it's like an easy transition from me. And then, ninjutsu is one of the more difficult mechanics to understand. So it was kind of like, this is really confusing. All right. And then I kind of fell out of it for a few years in high school. And then when I got into college, I really started to pick it up during Zendikar, World Wake, that kind of those sets, and got really big into it. And I really kind of haven't stopped since then. I feel like I stopped one time right after Ravnica. Like right after Dragon's Maze, I was like, I'm done. and then like a year later, I was like, I'll come back. Whenever Battle for Zendikar came up, I was like, it's whatever.
yeah. I think we all as Magic players have gone through that phase where we're just like,
sure,
I need to stop for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of weird too because I feel like if I wasn't making Magic content, I might have been done during the like Aetherflux Reservoir style decks a year and a half ago, where I was just like, these decks are degenerate and terrible, and I hate energy, and like just hated those particular mechanics. But powered through, and now we're in a much better place.
Yes.
As far as the standard format.
Yeah. I mean, like standard is so amazing right now.
Yeah, it's great.
So, kind of like thinking about, okay, you started in Champions era and really came full force in the car. What were some of the either decks that you really liked to play back then, or maybe a specific card if there's no specific deck?
I want to say, man, because my favorite mechanic of all time is probably mill.
Okay.
If you've ever seen any of my streams or any of my like videos, as far as like whenever I talk about mill decks, I'm just like, it's just like the best mechanic because it's the mechanic where like your opponent just can't do anything except just lose if you're fast enough, and like we're just like right there in modern as far as having a good mill deck, like it's so close to being like amazing. We're just missing like one card to kind of set it off. But yeah, I think for Zendikar, World Wake block, Hedron Crab is really fun to me. Archive Trap was like probably my favorite card because of the fetch lands and all that kind of stuff. As far as like a Timmy card, like a really basic card I really liked. I really loved Traumatize, even though it's really expensive. But it does like the one thing where your opponent goes, what? And they have to like, just half their deck and like, oh, that sucks. You know?
Yeah, it's a traumatizing card, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so moving away from that, I want to talk more about, Magic the Gathering or Wizards of the Coast more specifically.
Sure.
We all have things that we would love to see change, but my direct question to you is what is one of the least favorite things that Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, like that they've either created or done in modern play or modern day play? And let's just kind of just focus on maybe the last 5 years.
One of the least favorite things I've done,
if any.
There's just so many. I think the master sets has been something that's been a point of contention for a lot of people. And that's always like my go-to of like, they really just messed that up really badly. And now they're kind of like trying to make up for it for this amazing Ultimate Masters, which is coming out soon. But it's like so expensive. Like the average Joe just can't afford it. Or like, doesn't want to, not that they can't afford it, but just like is going to obsessively complain about the price until they buy it. So it's like, I feel like people are still going to pay that price. And that's the thing. It's like WotC can just maybe even rack that price up to like $450 and people are still going to pay that price. But it's like they're going to complain about it,
Yeah.
And I'm definitely going to complain about it as well. It's definitely one of those things where it's just like it's almost like the power creep in cards. It's like the money creep in Magic has kind of continually gone up for the MSRP for each individual box, and it's just kind of never stopped for the master sets. And it's really obnoxious to kind of see that because it's just like the sets were kind of invented to help the modern format, like to be cheaper, but you can't really do that if your MSRP is basically like in parity with like the entire secondary market, you know?
Yeah.
It's very strange. That's probably one of my major gripes. I mean, another one is always like the Pro Tour stuff where it's just like taking water bottles away from pro players and not giving them t-shirts and just random stuff like that where I'm just like, why would you, this is so silly.
Yeah. It is kind of interesting, a lot of the choices they've made recently. Like, I don't know if you've looked at GPs or been to a GP recently, but you no longer get playmats as part of the GP.
Yeah, you Yeah, you have to pay for
Yeah.
them and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah, the last I was invited to a GP in Memphis early this year. I was invited as a spell slinger, which I thought was really cool because I was like, I'm not a spell slinger, but all right, because it's like a pseudo celebrity.
Sure.
I'm like, I'm not one of those, but all right, I'll come for you because I've never been to a GP, as a player. Really, I thought it was really cool as far as like seeing like artists and stuff there. That was awesome, and seeing like random cosplayers. That was really cool. But yeah, when I walked in, I was like, man, like you don't get like anything for even showing up. You just have to pay money to even walk in the doors. That's weird. I feel like you got stuff previously,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah, you'd get a lot of stuff. You know, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
weird. So I just the microtransactionification, I guess if you want to call it that, of like all of this different like facets of like the tournament play, the Pro Tour stuff, how they sell cards and packs now, and how they've kind of like done away with like making stuff kind of affordable, where it's like if you make it affordable, you're going to have more players kind of come in, and now it's more like they're just kind of focusing on their like target demographic for just the prices. And it's like I understand that, but at the same time it's really difficult for me to be like hey, younger cousin who isn't into Magic the Gathering, do you want to play this new deck? It's $300.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think they're like, that's the cost of like a Switch.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I can certainly see that. All right, so moving on, let's end this section on a positive note. What is your favorite thing about Magic the Gathering?
The Magic the Gathering community. No, I'm kidding. I'd really think for me, Magic is one of the best games as far as a card game it goes. It's just so much fun to play, and it has such a good like kind of addictive loop as far as you wanting to continue to play a new game, and the like randomization factor of shuffling decks and cutting decks and that kind of stuff is really great. And now with like Magic Online and Magic Arena, you can play it literally at your house just whenever you want to, which is great as well. Because it makes, for me, it's like as a brewer, it makes brewing decks so much easier. Because I'm like, oh, this card sucks. I just throw it out and I get a new one for like less than a ticket. I'm like, yeah, I'll get this and throw it in there. And then like you just kind of keep brewing and playing that way. For me, going to a local game store is really fun. I don't really have the time to do it right now because of the baby and all that fun stuff. But eventually, I'd like to get back into going to a local game store because kind of seeing people day to day or week to week is really rewarding. And kind of building your player group from there is really fun as well. But yeah, probably the most fun for me as far as the thing I like the most about Magic is like the card game itself, because it's such just a well-rounded game. Even though some mechanics break it from time to time, like Delve or Energy or whatever, it's definitely something that I really enjoy. Usually from set to set.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, community is, I think, and community in the way of going to see and creating a play group, I think is probably.
Yeah, definitely.
I think just about anybody loves that, and I think that's it's great. It's great. All right, so let's move on to the Fast Five, and the Fast Five is where you can only say yes or no to these questions.
Oh, that's gonna be hard. Okay.
This is always a challenge for everybody, and I always like doing this because it just it's kind of like that quick one-off. So we'll go ahead and start. Okay. Question number 1: will Magic the Gathering last another 25 years?
Oh, that's so hard. How can I? I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
But that's such a hard that's such a more difficult question to kind of turn into a yes or no. For me it's a yes.
We can come back to it. Don't worry.
Sure.
I'll allow time. Will the reserve list get printed?
Oh, no.
Do you like Planeswalkers in the game?
No.
Do more cards need to be unbanned?
Yes, in Modern, yes.
Will Hasbro sell Wizards of the Coast?
I feel like yes, eventually. But I'm not like... I don't know who or why. It's like a gut feeling there. It feels like yes, eventually. Just because of how volatile Wizards of the Coast can make their own product, at times. I feel like that's a yes.
All right, so we finished the 5. Let's go ahead and unpack, because I know you really wanted to talk more, or you seem like you wanted to talk more about the 25 years thing. So let's go ahead and I'll give you a moment. Let's unpack kind of like what you kind of wanted to expand on there.
Yeah. So I think Magic the Gathering can be around for forever, infinity. That's not the issue for me. I think for me, it's like a lot of people were like, oh, is Magic the Gathering paper going to be around in the next 25 years? That I don't know. As far as Magic the Gathering online being around for the next 25 years, that I don't know either. Same thing for Arena. It's all kind of up in the air. I do think, though, that digital Magic is something that they've really kind of invested their time into. It's something that probably will be the new future and the new norm going forward, especially because of how local game stores kind of exist right now, which is they don't really.
Yeah.
You know, they have like local game stores really need to stay on top of like doing video games or board games or kind of being a cafe or a lounge or new video game arenas and that kind of stuff. I think that's really where a local game store can succeed, by bringing other communities together and then saying, you know, here's Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Like basing just a local game store on Magic the Gathering, I feel like is difficult. But definitely for me, I feel like, I don't know. It's such a hard question because it's like, I would have to look at data and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like Magic the Gathering as a paper investment it's definitely going to be 5 to 10 years. It's definitely going to exist for 5 to 10 years more, but it's just like, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns to where it's like the game itself can definitely survive in a digital environment. We've already seen that with Arena. We've already seen that with online, because online's been around for over 10 years now, and it's definitely done well there. And plus, you know, Hearthstone and all those kind of digital card games, those exist as well. And so I feel like it's all upside with digital, and I feel like that's the future eventually. I just think that it's going to begrudgingly kind of fade away because of all the investment that's kind of built into the reserve list and all of that stuff. I just don't know when that happens.
Yeah. I think, you know, and here's something interesting to think about in regards to Magic lasting 25 years, digital, and the reserve list. Like, couldn't you see like the swan song of if Wizards of the Coast rise off in the sunset as far as paper? Do they just print the reserve list and say, here you go, you can have access to these cards now on paper?
I could definitely see that. They could probably go the route of like what Yu-Gi-Oh has done, which is reprint the crap out of everything they've ever done ever. Because like there are like 17 different versions of like Blue Eyes White Dragon. You know, it's kind of insane how many different versions of a single card are in Yu-Gi-Oh. And I could definitely see that happening with Magic the Gathering, kind of probably still remaining as a paper product, but kind of being more relegated to like baseball cards or whatever, where it's like not nearly as, I guess, a niche product and more just a collectible product. Because like right now, Magic and like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, they kind of all share this space of like they're a game together, like they're kind of a community building game, whereas like trading cards for like baseball or basketball or whatever, like those are more like just collectibles, you know. And I feel like eventually we're just going to have paper product just be collectibles strictly. Whereas now they're both like they're also community building, they're also games, and they're also collectibles. Like it's all in one thing for Magic. And that's kind of like the trifecta of it, of the reason it's kind of survived for so long. I just don't know if I can see myself in 25 years going to like a local Target and buying real cards.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. And I think it's something really, you know, interesting to think about. You know, as we, you know, tick down the years of, you know, the next 25. So
sure.
So, yeah.
Here's kind of what like this is my dream scenario. Okay, they make a new platform for Magic Online that's like not called Arena, it's called something else, and then everything transfers over to that new platform that's built in Unity engine or whatever. That's like my dream scenario where like they just rebuild the engine because the engine is so old now, and they can make an engine work and just kind of update itself. I think that's a really interesting idea. Arena survives either by kind of becoming a iOS or, you know, Android mobile only kind of platform. I think that's probably how that's going to happen. This is like all hypothetical.
Sure.
This is like how like I imagine it would be happening. But I feel like having a single platform with everything on it, like how Magic Online is, but in the structure and in the like the visual layout of how Arena is the win. You know, that's like the true swan song, I feel like, of what Magic would be on digital platforms.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But like personally to me, I actually like Magic Online's like layout because it's super easy, like, and you can tell what's happening. on stream, especially from like a glance. Whereas like on Arena, if someone's playing Arena on stream, it's like sometimes really difficult to tell what's going on because they don't show the cards on the actual, like, it's like tilted, so it's kind of hard to read stuff.
Yeah. And I imagine too, for like new players though, like on the inverse, don't like MTGO because it's so outdated. It's you know, kind of like, I don't know, amateur hour when it comes to the look and feel of it. However,
yeah, I mean, it's very, it feels very Windows 98, Windows 2000. You know, it feels very of that era, and it's definitely it has definitely carried on that look. I mean, looking at even older stuff like from like even 5 years ago, online looked worse.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's looked a lot better recently, and I feel like you know, it's just way more streamlined now, which is great. But I definitely think the animations are the cool thing, the sound effects and all those kind of things that Arena brings to like Magic as a whole is something that like online would definitely benefit from, for sure, obviously. Or maybe even giving Arena the option of, instead of having that like slanted 45-degree angle, like having a classic view where it's like flat.
Yeah.
That would be, for me, I would love that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, there's some definite things there that if they could, and I have to say, like, I imagine at some point, especially because Unity is so flexible as far as the game engine to develop on, that they could, you know, eventually have those options for players. So,
sure.
All right, so let's move on to the final questions of today, and that's so. This one is very fun because it elicits a lot of different responses, and so if you could change one thing about the game, let's say that you are the head designer for Magic the Gathering now. Like, you just got promoted. You are now the head designer. You can make decisions on the next set of Magic the Gathering. What would you do differently and why?
So many things. I think from a paper perspective.
Yeah, let's talk more on the paper perspective.
Quality control is like number one right now for me. I think warping of cards is like a huge issue, and so it's something that like that as well as like counterfeits, because I kind of got into a discussion with Saffron Olive on Twitter about counterfeiting and stuff, and how that's kind of come up in like prominence lately. And it's like 100% the reason of like WotC's kind of like lower print quality. And having like pros show up to a pro tour with cards that are actually counterfeits and they don't even realize it, you know? Until like someone actually looks at it and goes, "Hey, that card's fake." And they're like, "Oh, really? I had no idea. I bought it off of a seller that was on TCG Player or whatever," you know? Like, there's so many different like lines down the road where it's like, this person thought it was real, this person thought it was real, this person thought it was real. And then when it got to the actual like tournament, someone with like a jewel glass or whatever looked at it and was like, "This is fake," you know? And that's, quality control can help with that a lot. And that's definitely like a huge focus for me for paper Magic right now. As far as like the game mechanically, I really hate Planeswalkers. I wish they'd go away.
What specifically about Planeswalkers do you not like?
Well, +1 is like some sort of card advantage, some sort of removal, some sort of something that you can't really interact with the first time ever. And then their first negative is like something that's like either spot removal, board wide removal, or some sort of advantage that's like better than paying even the cost of the actual card. And then their final negative is just to win the game. And like, I get that that's like a cool idea, but at the same time, there's so many Planeswalkers that are just too good. Like, they're just too fast to the point where it's like, if a Liliana Veil hits the battlefield, that might as well just be game over, because you're going to lose a card as soon as that hits the battlefield. You know, and in a game, in Modern especially, it could take a situation where you may have good removal in your hands where you're top decking and you're just dead. Yeah. And I feel like there's definitely cards like that in Magic that already exist. You know, Thoughtseize is a card, Lightning Bolt's a card. There are definitely cards like that exist. But those cards are one-and-done cards. Planeswalkers stick around, and if you don't deal with them, basically creating a secondary player on the battlefild to where it's like you have to focus your attention there versus actually trying to kill your opponent. That just creates this weird, like, secondary, like, kind of split decision making on where your actual spells are going throughout the match, and it's kind of frustrating, especially to those faster formats like Modern and Legacy, to where it's just like you're just kind of boned once ever a Planeswalker hits, and you don't have Dreadbore or you don't have like Abrupt Decay or whatever.
Sure,
you know?
Sure. I mean, today though they are starting to finally print more versatile answers to Planeswalkers, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They've started to definitely print more stuff for answering them. I would still love like a 2-mana remove target, like some. I mean, we have like Assassin's Trophy now, which is basically that. It's just really kind of constrictive on mana requirements.
Sure. Yeah.
But I definitely think that Planeswalkers are a headache. They aren't impossible to beat, but to me, it's just like they create a scenario where you basically lose the game if a Jace the Mind Sculptor hits and you're playing against a control deck. Like it's just like sometimes where it's just like you just can't win after that.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating because it's like if that card didn't exist and they had just a Cryptic Command in their hand, this game might still be balanced.
Yeah.
So it's just very interesting where it's just like I really love Planeswalkers because they give an idea. They give like kind of like a character within this plot in the story itself of Magic, like kind of a spotlight, and they create like these kind of fake mascots for the marketing campaigns and stuff. That's interesting, and I like that a lot as well. But just make them legendary creatures. Don't make them Planeswalkers.
Sure. Yeah, with the abilities.
Don't make them secondary players on the battlefield.
Right. No, I think that's fair. I mean, there's it's that particular Planeswalkers is something that's been debated for quite some time. So yeah.
I mean, they're never going away because there's just a ton of them now, and they are really popular to like the casual player, and obviously the spike as well within Modern for like the multiple different Lilianas, because there's multiple good Lilianas out there. But it's just like every single time there's a new set, I'm just like, oh, I wish, because like I want new Planeswalkers, but just to combat the old Planeswalkers, I'm like, I really wish there's a 3-mana red Planeswalker that was good, that kind of thing.
They should make Planeswalker abilities destroy other Planeswalkers. How about that? Huh?
That'd be nice. Like -3 destroy target permanent. That'd be cool. Just assassin. Like if like the new Vraska had like basically Assassin's Trophy ability instead of Abrupt Decay's ability, I'd take that.
Yeah. So, all right. So winding down, this is a question that I like asking because, well, everybody has their own perspective. Is if somebody came up to you and said, Terran, I'm about to embark on my first journey in Magic the Gathering, what advice would you give that person?
Okay.
And let me, if I can, I'll clarify more. Is it could be play digital, or it could be play paper, or don't play tournaments, or anything like. It could be anything.
Sure. I definitely think if they're just getting into Magic, because it's really difficult, because it's like as soon as you want to like give someone advice, you're always like, buy singles, don't buy packs, or whatever. Like you want to yell at them, like start to be like, don't do that. Right. But at the same time, it's like you can buy a fat pack or not fat pack, but you can buy in box and draft with your friends and stuff like that. So like those things exist. Packs exist for a reason, for good reasons too. And like you can also sealed and all that. It just depends on how they want to play the game and how they enjoy the game. To me, I always recommend buying. These products don't exist anymore, but I loved recommending the dual decks for people, because I could play one of the decks and they could play one of the decks, and I could help to teach them. Like last year, I bought the Goblins versus Artificers deck for Christmas for a cousin of mine, and he was like, "This is like really cool," because he wanted to get into the game, but he didn't have any cards. And the dual decks kind of give you 2 different decks that you can like mix and match if you want to, or they can just give you a way to play somebody immediately. And that's like the best way to play, I feel like, for Magic as far as a newcomer. They like just treat it like an actual card game, like not a card game, but a board game, where it's like you don't really have to collect other cards, but you can if you want to. Because that's how a lot of people like originally played Magic. They just like built a single deck, and then they just kept that, and they never like got new cards because I have a deck, But that's how a lot of the old vintage players like used to play the game. But I mean, obviously, buy singles, don't buy packs unless you're drafting or whatever. And then if you're going for like online stuff, make sure to look at like different pricing places on different platforms. Like some might be cheaper over here versus over here versus over here, and that's it for like anything as well. I'm sorry, I hit the mic there, but that's it for like TCG Player or Card Kingdom or whoever you want to go with, Right. And I always recommend like buying like one thing first before you buy a bunch of stuff from a single retailer, because of like shipping costs and how much, and like if it's damaged or whatever. Buying from eBay is really cool, but you might get fake cards, so be wary. Same thing for TCG Player sometimes, but not all the time, obviously. I don't know. But for me, I would always recommend going to, if they have a local game store, go to a local game store and buy singles from them first, or if they have them, or if they can order them. If you're being patient.
Right.
But I also recommend going if they've played Magic a little bit, like they know the game, how to play the game, go to a pre-release because that's like the most fun Magic can be, basically. So, because it's hype, everyone's hyped, everyone's excited, and it's kind of one of the situations where everyone's kind of sitting there like reading the card for like 10 minutes, being like, "What does this do? I think it does this," and then they misplay.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. So we're back. Sorry about that little mishap there. We kind of lost connection for a moment, but let's go ahead and let's wrap this up for you. And I actually want to ask sort of a bonus question because
Sure.
we just came off Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica. Literally just finished up this past weekend at the time of this recording, and there's been a lot of buzz about mulligan rules. And in case you missed it or anybody else watching this missed it and didn't see that LSV final game of the finals, and he had to mull to 4.
Ouch.
And basically that mull to 4 pretty much sealed his fate to basically lose the Pro Tour. Now,
Yeah.
Oftentimes people will debate this topic over and over again, but when it happens to a prominent member of the community as well as a prominent pro, Hall of Famer, somebody who has been in the game for a very long time, the debate kind of stirs back up. I'd actually like to ask you, like, what do you think about the mulligan rules as it stands now? I mean, it was just changed a couple of years ago to what it is what it is currently. But is there further refinements that you feel that is needed or could be done to sort of, ward off these kind of issues?
Sure. Mulligan to 4 is, I feel like, just kind of part of the beast with Magic the Gathering as a whole, like with the full 60, you draw 7 and those 7 might not be great. Especially because you have to also contend with like having mana in your hand and a good curve in your hand as well. There's a lot of factors going on with Magic as a whole as a game. Mulliganing to 4 is something you never want to happen during a Pro Tour. It definitely can happen, and it's very sad to see because it basically just turns a game into a not game, And if it's like a decider like that, that's awful as well. We kind of talked about this before we started streaming or recording, but I really like the idea, and this is kind of just my idea, and this could totally be wrong and bad and not good or whatever. But I love an idea of like each time you mulligan, the scry count goes up. So like if you mulligan down to 6, you scry 1, you mulligan down to 5, you scry 2, and then maybe like mulligan down to 4, you scry 3, and then it doesn't go above 3 after that. Just to give you kind of like some way to kind of combat losing cards. I don't know if that's that useful. Now it could create a situation where it's like if opponent's playing a miracle deck, that might be a bad thing because they can just kind of see the top 3 cards of their library. But most of the time when you're mulliganing, you're trying to get land, you're trying to get low creature curve or low threat. And that's really what it's all about for the opening hand there, or for if you're on the play or if they're on the play or whatever. If you're drawing that extra card, you might keep a mull to 4 and be happy with a scry 1. But maybe if you have a mull to 4 and you're on the play, well, scrying 3 or 2 even is a much better idea or much better like application of like using the scry ability other than just having to scry 1 and be like, well, I hope I get another land off the top of here, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's very difficult to kind of surmise unless people put it into practice. And that's kind of what happened with the scry thing. Like a lot of people were like, this isn't going to work, and then it started like to put into like play and stuff, and everyone's like, wow, this actually works really well. Like it kind of helps if you have to mulligan down to 5 or 6. But yeah, mull to 4 is always, you're probably going to lose the match regardless because you're 3 cards down. Like that's just probably an eventuality anyway. But giving you that extra kind of leeway of being able to look 2 cards deep or even 3 cards deep, I feel like that helps a lot.
Yeah. And I know like this is probably another bonus question, but to kind of just tail into that, like, watching the the Player of the Year playoff, that particular was that format was you get a free mulligan. I mean, would it make sense to also explore the option of giving players in competitive at least 1 free mulligan?
I mean, yeah, because they're playing. For me, I really like that idea for 1 free mulligan per match or whatever in a Pro Tour event. I think that would add an extra layer of competitiveness because like definitely near like the finals where it's like they have to win 5 times in a row, right?
Yeah.
Like you have one mulligan for all of those matches, like one free mulligan for all those matches. That'd be really cool. Where it's like, oh, he's going to use his one free mulligan this game. He won't have it the next 2 matches or whatever. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where I think they have to put it into practice and just kind of see how the audience reacts to it. But I feel like giving pro players better options to mulligan at that high a level is something that needs to be looked at like constantly.
And yeah, it's one of those interesting topics, and it's definitely always debated on social media. So thanks for giving your for giving your perspective.
No problem. I'm a very light Pro Tour watcher. I don't really watch the Pro Tour that much. I do enjoy it when I can watch it. It's just one of those things where it's like an all day event. It's kind of like how football kind of became this all day event where it's like the pregame and the after game, that kind of thing. Where it's like, I used to be the guy that just like listened to it on the radio and it's like, all right, I got you. But you can't really do that with Magic.
Right. So what's next for Terran on YouTube? Like, are there things that you want to do that you haven't done as far as content creation?
As far as for MTGO Traders, I'm really interested in to start like reviewing like physical products and stuff. I feel like that's like a huge like opportunity that's like, the only person that I feel like has capitalized on has been Tellurian Community College, and his videos are great on that subject, but there's like no diversity of thought besides him. You know, like no one else does it, and I'm like, man, I really want to jump on this bandwagon of like no one else except for me and Tellurian, where we talk about deck boxes and talk about the card sleeves, because there are better card sleeves than others, there are better deck boxes than others, but I definitely feel like I can bring a different kind of angle and an opinion to that that he can't, and that's kind of exciting, and I really am thinking and always kind of pushing towards doing that kind of content, as well as doing more interview content and more just kind of comedy content, because I did a couple of comedy videos on the channel and really like doing them because they're really well edited and fun and spastic, and that's kind of just me on caffeine most of the time. But I really like doing those kind of videos, and I always want to do more. Basically, I just wish I had like a time machine where I could stop time and just work all the time.
Yeah, right.
So like I had the ability to like make a ton of content at once and just kind of get it out so people could see what was happening. And then on like, as far as my personal stuff on my personal YouTube channel, I'm really excited to talk about video games and maybe capture footage or stream video games on that or do whatever. I mean, I was streaming on Twitch, some Dragon Ball Fighters and stuff like that. And I really love those kind of games and like fighting games and MMOs. And I just don't really have like the venue for that until now to talk about it. And I feel like that's something that I really want to get into too.
Nice. Yeah, I've been checking out the gaming videos, and it's funny how just giving yourself a different medium sort of just gives you excitement,
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, because it's so strange, because it's like I love Magic the Gathering, but it's like it wears me out throughout the week because I'm brewing all day and testing and deck testing, and then you figure out that like some cards are better than other cards, especially like in standard, because of the card pool is so small. So whenever you run into another Arclight Phoenix deck, you're just like, why? I hate this deck. It's so bad, but it's so good that I hate it.
Yeah.
Because it makes brewing really difficult, and that's definitely something that I feel like Saffron Olive and all the other brewers really kind of suffer from. We're just like, I love Magic, but I hate playing so often to the point where you understand like degenerative cards.
Yeah. Yeah. It's both fun and a detriment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then being able to be like, talking about, I don't know, Spider-Man on PS4 or Battlefield 5 or Diablo Immortal, and like talking about how that kind of stuff happens. And you're like, this is so much more interesting to me right now because I've talked about Magic the Gathering all day.
Right. Well, Terran, thanks again for coming on and doing 15, 16 or 17 or however many questions we did.
However many. A lot of we did. I think we did more than 15, but that's my fault.
No. It's a product of the format, and I'm sure you've run into that doing your interviews with your creator series on MTGO Traders. Once again, Absolutely. Thanks for joining me. Again, check out. I'm going to put everything in the description below to check out his channels. And follow him on Twitter and everything else, social media, because you're awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Thanks for inviting me on here. This was fun.
Thank you.